Thank you. Any more comments or questions at all? Yeah, one there, and then we'll go to the back. Yeah.
Where did the visions for your creatures come from? Like, just the idea of the image? Like, do you sketch the characters first, or just did it come to your dreams, or through playing with them?
Where do the visions of your creatures and characters come from? What provides their origins?
We don't make. I mean, it's usually not a sketch. It's probably could be a sculpture, or it could be a painting, and we say it's a mix between possibly those two. It's a collage. But it's very disappointing, isn't it? And we don't. We can draw, but we don't do stuff. We don't try to draw an image of a puppet. That would be massacre.
Larry Simon. I think we've got another question. Yeah, the one there. Thank you.
You talk about finance, and I've watched a couple of bits of your previous interviews about, I think it was Channel 4, financing films. There must be a frustration now, I guess, is there, with you're hunting for money to make new work. A lot of artists are. But what, if you say you went to certain sort of funders with ideas, how frustrating is it to you, or is it not frustrating that these funders aren't available, perhaps, with money to make more of your style of filmmaking?
I think we've weathered that one. There's two of us to say, like, that's just the situation.
Right.
You just accept it. There's,
I mean, the thing was, at the time of when we made Crocodiles and Rehearsals was a particularly
fertile period
in Channel 4's history, where they had a brief, as it were, to support all the losers. And they did. It was amazing. That they just supported it for a couple of years, and then it all vanished. But in a sense, that now there's no way we could go to Channel 4. That we have to present a series. Can you imagine us presenting Crocodiles as a series? It'd be hilarious.
Yes, in the middle. Yeah.
Yes, there's another creative artist, actually from Poland, who works with Bruno Schultz, who says some of the things that you say, and I wondered, and he uses mannequins, and I wondered if you'd ever come across him, had any conversations with him, either in reality or in your imagination, and I'm talking about Tadeusz Kantor.
We actually shook his hand once. That's about as far as he got. Yeah, he wouldn't.
I think we saw Villa Pola when it came to the Riverside.
But we never saw Good Class. I mean, other than the Vida film.
Certain stills. But he was incorporating also Gombrowicz and Picasso.
Yeah, but I mean, par excellence, he set the highest degree of the interpretation of elements of Schultz, for sure. Absolutely.
Have you found very different responses in how the work is received across national or continental boundaries? Is there a very different take-up in a sensibility around reception of the work?
Schultz?
No, your work in general, yeah.
It's important not to know those things.
We were talking earlier about Tokyo box office numbers around the piano tuner of Earthquakes, and there's a sense, I guess, of receptive cultures that are still imaginatively open and allow a wider range of moving image and particularly a depth of moving image. Is that might be reflected perhaps partly in funding, I guess, as much as anything else, and the sense of a European sensibility at the heart of Europe that you very much feel part of?
What's the question?
I think so. Did I slightly inflect at you?
Yeah, I lost that one too, right?
Do you find favourable anchorage in certain territories, I guess?
No, not at all. I think the anchorage is in that imagination in someone who's both in the cinema and not, and is either asleep or dreaming, but it's not a consistent body of revelers. Independence. I think what really shocked us was the one time, it was recently, like 2 years ago, we were invited, and we went very reluctantly to Los Angeles to do a lecture at the Mark Davis Foundation, which is it's where the Oscars are done, and it was a 1,000-seat cinema, and we jokingly said you'll get 217 people maybe if you're lucky, and it was full, and there was a queue around the block, and we felt totally embarrassed. Everybody was dressed in Gothic black gear, and they came at the end of the thing. They all started coming towards us. We sort of had to go out a side door. But it was a bit scary. And the only questions that were asked were about crocodiles. They knew nothing else. So it was like a time warp. So it was such a bizarre, hokey situation. We thought, get out of here.
Could we talk perhaps a little bit about the two features and how work arrives at a certain length, perhaps, how it shapes itself, and what prompted those two pieces to become the scale they were, of course. It's indivisible, I guess, from the conception, but how did they differ, if you like, in a working practice, given the scale of the machinery required to make a feature in the way that the question suggested just now?
I remember when Keith, our producer, when we did Crocodiles, said, would you guys ever be interested in doing a feature film? And we immediately said, you're crazy, no way. But then we were reading Robert Walser's Jakob von Guten at the time, and we suddenly said, you know, if you could make it into like a Bergman, a chamber play, you know, just 4 characters and a couple of a little chorus of students, we sort of felt like, oh, I think we could handle that. At the same time, we were working in the theater, and we had done some decors for the opera, where when you suddenly have, you have to realize that when you do an opera decor, you originally work, you know, the table's not much bigger than this. You do a scale model of 1 to 25, and then you cut out little people that big and you put them on there. But then the day comes when the project gets scaled up. You're down in Bregenz in Austria, and you have an 80-people chorus. Suddenly walks onto the stage, and then you suddenly go whoosh. You suddenly see that a space can be inhabited and by live action. So I think in a way, that little bit of experience of working with theater and opera made us feel like it wasn't so terribly intimidating. And I think it was just a question of trying to keep the piece, I mean, Benyamenta, very intimate and very lyrical, very much like a silent film where there wasn't a lot of dialogue. And I think that's something very important for us that I think as you've obviously labored under tonight, is that the puppets don't speak. That we feel that it's a sort of a ballet between the mask and you have to read the mask. And I think that we wanted, when we did Institute Benyamenta, that you feel that the power of the mask is very important, and gesture, rhythm, and choreography tells you an awful lot about things that